Okay, so this is the key to test 4. The first 8 problems are multiple choice, and it says place the correct choice in the blank on the second page. All right, so a non-zero number raised to the power of 0 equals 1, 0, the number itself, or it cannot be done. Remember, what that's saying is this. If you have a non-zero number, let's say 6, and it's raised to 0 power, remember that's called the 0 power rule. And so that means that 6 is 0 power would be 1. So any non-zero number, so the base is any number but 0, and it's raised to 0 power, you get 1. So the answer here is A. Okay, B, to find the x-intercept of a graph. So remember, if you're looking, basically you were looking at lines. So if you're looking at anywhere on the x-axis, remember anywhere on the x-axis, the y value is 0. So you let y equals 0. So that's going to be C. All right, if you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by the same negative number, so remember basically that means that if you have negative 2x is less than, let's say, 6. And so to get x by itself, remember you had to divide by negative 2. Well, if I divide or multiply by a negative number, an inequality by a negative number, you had to change the direction of the inequality symbol. So remember, this became x is greater than negative 3. All right, so basically, if you multiply divide both sides of an inequality by the same negative number, the direction of the inequality is reversed. The answer is B. Okay, so if L is defined by this equation right here, so here's the equation of this line, and you're told that M is perpendicular to this equation, to this line, then what is the slope of line M? Well, first of all, I want you to notice that if you wrote this in slope-intercept form, in other words, you got y by itself, so you add 5 to both sides, you get y equals negative 2/3 x plus 5. And remember, that is right here slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So your slope, the slope of line L is negative 2/3. So the slope of line L is negative 2/3. But you're not interested in the slope of line L. You want to know what's the slope of line M. Well, you're told that line M is perpendicular to line L. Well, remember, if two lines are perpendicular, and remember the symbol for perpendicular is the symbol right here, then the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. So negative reciprocals of each other. If the lines are parallel, then the slopes would be equal. All right, but in this case, the lines are perpendicular. So if this slope is negative 2/3, then the negative reciprocal would be positive 3/2. So the answer is B. The answer is B. Okay, now what's the degree of this term? Well, remember, to find the degree of the term, you add the exponents of all the variables. So that's 3, that's 1, that's 4. So 3 plus 1 plus 4 would be 8. What is the constant term of the polynomial? Remember, the constant term is a term that doesn't have a variable attached with it. So that would be negative 2. So it would be C. What is the numerical factor of the term? Well, remember the numerical factor is the coefficient. So whatever you're multiplying the variable by. So in this case, x squared is being multiplied by 4. So the numerical factor, numerical meaning number, that you're multiplying the variable by is 4. And then that kind of goes along with number 8. So this numerical factor 4 is called the coefficient. So that's the coefficient. So in terms of the answers that go here, let's see. So this is 1's A, 2 is C, 3 is B, 4 is B, 5 is E, 6 is C, 7 is C, and 8 is D. Okay, now in number 9, in 9A at least, you'll notice that this is in slope-intercept form, so that kind of goes back to something in number 4. You want to write in slope-intercept form. And so the slope, once it's a slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, whatever you multiply in the variable x by, that's your slope. So this is negative 4/5. And then b, your y-intercept, is just 6. That's where the graph would cross the y-axis. Over here, though, you had to get y by itself. So you get y equals, and if you add 5x to both sides, you're going to get y equals 5x plus 2. 5x plus 2. So in this case, the slope is 5. So don't make a mistake and say negative 5 because y is not by itself. You got to put it in slope-intercept form. So you have to write in slope-intercept form. All right, and so now also the y-intercept is 2. Okay, so in number 10 you had these expressions, and you would need to use the properties of exponents to work these. Well, in part A, basically you're just going to be using the product rule. So first of all, 5 times a negative 2 is a negative 10. And then a squared times a to the 4th, from the product rule. So when you multiply like bases, you add exponents, that's a to the 6th. Over here, b times b squared, again, product rule, when you multiply like bases, you add exponents. 2 plus 1 is 3, so it's b cubed. And then c, c cubed times c, So again, when you multiply like bases, you add exponents. 3 plus 1 is 4. And so that's your answer for letter A. For letter B, you're going to use first of all, you can use the power of a product rule. And so you're going to get x squared to the 4th, y cubed to the 4th. And now you're going to use the power rule. So when you have a power raised to a power, you multiply the exponents, you multiply the power. So 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 4 is 12. So this becomes x to the 8th, y to the 12th. Okay, so in letter C, you're going to basically be using the quotient rule. Okay, now first of all, let's reduce 8 and 8 divided by 4. 8 divided by 4 here is 2. So I'm going to get 2. And then using a quotient rule, the variables, I get x to the 9th. Remember, quotient rule, when you divide like bases, you subtract exponents. So it's the exponent from the numerator, subtract the exponent from the denominator. So it's 9 minus 1. And then here, that becomes y to the 10, subtract 6. So the answer then will be 2x to the 8th power, y to the 4th power. All right, over here, again, you're going to use the power of a product. This will be the power of a quotient rule. And so you're basically going to say, I'm going to take the numerator, which is 3x squared. I'm going to square it, raise to the 2nd power. Divide by, I'm going to take the denominator. I'm going to square it as well. So that's just using the power of a quotient rule. Then I'm going to use the power of a product rule in each of these cases. Power of product. So basically I'm going to say 3 squared times x squared divided by 5 squared times y to the 5th squared. Then I'm going to use the power rule. So first of all, 3 squared is 9. X squared squared. So when you have a power, it's a power. You multiply exponents. That's what we did over here. So it's x to the 4th divided by, and then 5 squared is 25. And then y to the 5th squared is y to the 10th. So I get 9 x to the 4th divided by 25 y to the 10th. Okay, over here in letter F, you have to remember that, and that goes back to one of the problems over here that we talked about in number 1. You have to remember that any number, non-zero number raised to the 0 power is 1. So in this case, when I have 5x to the 0 plus 3x to the 0 like this, then I know that this part here, x to the 0 is 1, so this becomes 5 times 1. And then plus, and then over here, this whole expression being raised to the 0 power, so that's 1. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. So that goes here. Okay. Now, in number 11, you're given this line, this linear equation, y equals negative 2/5 x plus 2. You want to find the slope. Well, remember, this is already in slope-intercept form. So m is your slope. So that's that negative 2/5 here. And then your y-intercept, that's b. And then your y-intercept b, that's this 2, this positive 2. Okay, now, once you find the slope and the y-intercept, they're asking you to use that information to graph this line. And you have to use, it says, use the slope and the y-intercept. Don't use anything else. So first of all, you had to, remember, to graph a line, you need 2 points. Well, this is one of your points right here, the y-intercept. So the graph is going to cross the y-axis at 2 right here. So there's one of your points. Now, I'm going to use the slope to find the other point. So from this y-intercept, since the slope is negative, remember, rise over run, so negative 2/5. So since the rise is negative, I'm going to go from this y-intercept and go down 2. 1, 2, and then to the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's the other point. And then all you do is just use a straight edge to graph this line. Don't forget the arrows. All right, and always make sure it makes sense. See, the slope is negative, so the line should be falling, and it is. As you go from left to right, your line's falling. All right, number 12. So you want to write equation of a line, and you want to put it in slope-intercept form. All right, so you're given the slope, and you're given a point on that line. So we're going to use the point-slope form to start this out. And so that's y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. And so my x1's 3, and my y1's negative 5, and this is my slope. So I get y minus a negative 5 equals the slope times x minus 3. Now, make sure you rewrite this. Don't leave it as this. You need to know that y subtract negative 5 means y plus 5. And then distributing this, I get 1/4 x minus. Now, some of you are having issues multiplying fractions. So you have 1/4 times 3 over 1. Well, 1/4 times 3 over 1 is 3/4. It's not 12. Don't say 4 times 3 is 12. It's 1/4 times 3, which is 3 over 1, which is 3/4. All right, now to get y by itself, remember you'll put it in slope-intercept form. So that's y equals mx plus b. So you got to get y by itself. So you can subtract 5. Right now you're adding 5. The opposite is subtract 5. And so combine like terms, you get y equals 1/4 x. All right, now negative 3/4, use your calculator if you need to. Negative 3/4 and negative 5 would be a negative 5 3/4. That's what this is. So if you use your calculator, this is what you would get. But you want to rewrite this back as an improper fraction. So 5 times 4 is 20. 20 plus 3 is 23. So you get a negative 23/4. So that goes here. So y equals 1/4 x minus 23/4. Okay, number 13. Again, you want to find an equation of this line. So in the previous one, you were given the slope and a point, and here you're only given 2 points. But you're going to use the you're going to use the point-slope form. Y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. But again, in order to use this, you got to find the slope. So we're going to use the slope formula to find the slope of the line that contains these 2 points. So first of all, the slope would be, let's call this x1, y1, x2, y2. So we're going to say 9 subtract, remember your slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're going to say 9 subtract a negative 6, so y2 subtract y1, divided by 8 subtract 11. Well, 9 subtract a negative 6 is 9 plus 6. 8 subtract 11 is negative 3. 9 plus 6 is 15, divided by negative 3. Now, don't leave it as this fraction. If you leave it as a fraction, you're going to have all these fractions in here. You're going to get confused. You need to know that 15 over negative 3 is just a negative 5. And writing like this makes things a whole lot easier for you. So I found the slope. Now, to find the equation using the point-slope form, it does not matter which point you use. You'll get the same answer. Now, keep in mind you want this in standard form. So standard form, remember, is this. It's ax plus by equals c. So that's a c. So basically, you want all the variables one side, constant the other, and keep in mind that you can't have any fractions. So no fractions. So these must be integers, a, b, and c, or integers. And a must be positive. Okay, so a must be positive. All right. So let's go ahead and use the first one. So if you use 11 negative 6, you're going to get y minus the y coordinate negative 6 equals the slope, which is negative 5, times x minus 11. And so y subtract negative 6 is y plus 6. Now if I distribute this, I get negative 5x plus 55. Subtract 6. I get y equals negative 5x plus 49. Oops. Now keep in mind that's in slope-intercept form. So to put it in standard form, there are no fractions to begin with, so that's the easy kind right here. So all you got to do is bring the negative 5x over. So this becomes 5x plus y equal 49. So 5x plus y equal 49. Okay, so if you had used the 0.89, you would have gotten the same answer. You would have said y minus 9 equals the slope times x minus 8. And so this becomes y minus 9 equals, and if I distribute, I get negative 5x plus 40. Adding 9 to both sides, I get y equals negative 5x plus 49. And then remember, that's in slope-intercept form. I want standard form, so I got to bring this negative 5x over. So 5x plus y equal 49. And notice that the x and y's are on the left side, and the coefficient of x is positive, and there are no fractions. They're all a, b, and c are all integers. Okay, 14, you want to simplify this, and you're going to simplify this by combining like terms. And remember, like terms are terms that have the same variables, and the corresponding variables are raised to the same exponent. So in this case, and let's go ahead and put it in descending order. So in this case, I need to look at the a squareds first. So I have the coefficient here is negative 6. The coefficient here is 10. So I'm going to end up with 4 of them. So I get 4a squared. The a's, a positive 8 and a negative 3 is a positive 5a. And then your constants, a negative 2 and a positive 5 is a positive 3. Okay, the next one, now here I'm just adding polynomials, so I can just drop the parentheses. So I get 3x squared plus 2x squared is 5x squared. All right, now the x's, a negative 5x and a negative 4x is a negative 9x. And then your constants, a positive 1 and a negative 8 is a negative 7. Okay, over here you're subtracting. So the adding polynomials is easy. The subtracting, what you got to do is to get rid of this parentheses here. So you got to distribute the negative 1 through there. So this becomes 2a squared minus 5a minus 6a squared minus 2a, and then a negative times a negative is a positive, and a positive 6. And so now combining like terms, a positive 2a and a negative 6a is a negative 4a squared. I'm sorry, a positive 2a squared and negative 6a squared is a negative 4a squared. A negative 5a and a negative 2a is a negative 7a. And the only thing you have left is this constant plus 6. All right, over here. Okay, so you're subtracting this polynomial from this one. So first of all, you got to rewrite it so that way it looks like part B. So the subtract from, this part has to be listed first. So you're saying 6y squared plus 5y minus 2, and then you're subtracting this polynomial. Put that in parentheses. So that's negative 8y squared minus 3y plus 4. And now get rid of the parentheses by distributing the negative 1 through here, just like we did part B. You get 6y squared plus 5y minus 2. All right, when I subtract a negative, that becomes a positive 8y squared. Subtracting a negative 3y becomes a positive 3y. Subtracting a positive y becomes a negative 4. And then combining like terms and putting descending order, 6y squared and 8y squared is 14y squared. Your y's, the positive 5y and a positive 3y is a positive 8y. And then your constants, a negative 2 and a negative 4, is a negative 6. Okay, now over here, you want to graph this linear equation. So there are several approaches you could have done here. You could have gotten x by itself. That's one approach. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. So one approach is to have gotten x by itself. So you can add 6 to both sides. And so I get x equal negative 3y plus 6. And then using a t-table, because it didn't specify what approach to use. So using a t-table, so I'm trying to, remember I'm solving for x here, so you're plugging in for y. So if y is 0, I get negative 3 times 0 plus 6 is x. So that's 0 plus 6 is x, so x is 6. So that's what x is. If y is, let's say, 2, I get, well, let's just say 3. If y is 3, I get negative 3 times 3 plus 6. So that's negative 9 plus 6, which is negative 3. 6 is negative 3. And so if I plot those points, 6, 0, and negative 3, 3, and then using a straight edge, let's see, I guess something looks like this. Okay? All right, so that's one approach. The other approach is to use x and y intercepts. It didn't say you couldn't, so if you use x and y intercepts. So I could use x and y intercepts. And so to find the x-intercept, you're going to let y equal 0. So if I let y equal 0, that's negative 3 times y. Let me go ahead and rewrite the equation right here. So I get negative 3 times 0 equals x minus 6. Well, negative 3 times 0 is 0, so that's equal to x minus 6. Adding 6 to both sides, I get x equals 6. So there's your x-intercept, so that's this right here. And then to find the y-intercept, I'm going to let x equals 0. So again, I'm going to write the equation over. Now remember, x is 0, that's this right here. So I get negative 3y equals 0 minus 6. Negative 3y equals negative 6. And to get y by itself, I'm going to have to divide by negative 3. And so I get y to be 2, which is right here. Okay? So then you would plot to this point, and draw your line. You notice you get the same line. Okay, another approach which some of you probably took was this. You have negative 3y equals x minus 6. Let me write it over. And what some of you probably wanted to do was to get y by itself. Okay, well, let me just show you how to do that, though. You just got to be careful. So to get y by itself, you're going to divide both sides by negative 3. And so you get negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. 1 times y is y. All right, now this is where you have to be careful. Okay, so this, remember, you're going to write this as two fractions. So this is x divided by negative 3 minus 6 divided by negative 3. And you're going to rewrite this, and that's really 1x divided by negative 3. So you're going to rewrite this, though, as negative 1/3. See, this is a 1 right here. So negative 1/3 x. A negative divided by negative is a positive. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that's plus 2. And then you can use a t-table. And remember, when the slope here is a fraction, you want to choose nice numbers for x. So I'm going to choose numbers that are divisible by 3. So if x is 3, I get y equals negative 1/3 times 3 plus 2. So remember, that's 1, that's 1. So that becomes negative 1 plus 2, which is 1. So I get 3, 1. All right. If x is, let's say 0, I get y equals negative 1/3 times 0 plus 2. Negative 1/3 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. So you get 0, 2. So if I plot the points, 3, 1, and 0, 2, notice 3, 1 is this right here, and then 0, 2 is this right here. If I draw the line, I get the same line. So these were different approaches to finding or to graphing this line. Okay? Number 17. Now, number 17, you are told how to graph this. They want you to graph this using the x and y intercepts. And then you're told that just go ahead and use decimals if you get a fraction. All right, so to find the x-intercept, you're going to let y equals 0. So if I let y equals 0, see this right here, that becomes 0. So I get 4x equals 13. And to get x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 4. And so I get x to be 13 over 4, which as a decimal, 13 divided by 4, is 3.25. All right. So as an ordered pair, that's going to be 3.25 comma 0. Now to find the y-intercept, you're going to let x equals 0. So if x is 0 this time, 4 times 0 is 0, so you're left with 5y equal 13. So if I divide both sides by 5, I get y to be 13/5, which as a decimal is 2.6. So my y-intercept would be 0, 2.6. And then all I got to do is just to plot these points. I'm going to estimate where these are since those are decimals. So the x-intercept 3.25 is about here. The y-intercept 2.6 is about, it's a little bit more than 2.5. So let's say about here. And then just draw your line, extend it with the arrows, and that's what you get. Okay, number 18, you're just asked to find the slopes. You just all you want is a slope, nothing more. So you're going to use a slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so this is x1, y1. This is x2, y2. It's a good idea to label these. You're going to get, let's start with y2. So you get slope to be negative 2 subtract 4 over 6 subtract the negative 2. Negative 2 subtract 4 is a negative 6. 6 subtract negative 2 is 6 plus 2. So that's negative 6/8, which reduces a negative 3/4. And then finally, you want to solve this compound inequality. Now notice this is an or statement, so that's going to be the union. So anything shaded will be a solution. If this was an and, anything they have in common would be a solution. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and get x by itself. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I get 3x is greater than 9. All right, so to get x by itself, I'm going to have to divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times x is x. So I get x to be greater than 3. So any number greater than 3 is a solution to this first inequality. So and there are an infinite number of solutions that are bigger than 3. That's going to work. Over here, let me do that here. So here, I'm going to, first step I'm going to do is divide by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. 1 times x is x. But remember, I'm dividing by a negative number. So when you multiply divide by a negative number, you got to reverse this inequality symbol. So x will be less than or equal to positive 6 divided by negative 2 is a negative 3. So the next thing you had to do was to put these, now before I go on, any number less than or equal to negative 3 satisfies this inequality right here. Okay, so what you have to do now was graph each individually on a separate graph. So here's negative 3, here's 3. X is greater than 3 looks like this. X is less than or equal to negative 3 looks like this with a bracket because of the equal sign. And remember, this was an or statement. So anything shaded is a solution. So I'm shading all the ones that are solutions. So this is going to go here. So I'm going to have at negative 3, I'm going to have a bracket going this way. At positive 3, I'm going to have parentheses, and all the solutions are going to go to the right. And then interval notation, you just write what you see. So I'm going from negative infinity to negative 3. Oops. Negative infinity to negative 3 with the bracket. Union, and then 3 infinity. Okay, so that is the key to test 4.